everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are wrapping up the month of April and I am sharing my reading update with you for the second half of this month. I read a total of 12 books over the month of April, and in the first update I shared the first 5, so we have the rest to go through today. The irony of this month is that a lot of the books that I read in the second half were audiobooks or digital copies, so we've only got the one book to talk about in physical form, so I'm just going to go straight into it. So the first book we're going to talk about today is We Can't Keep Meeting Like This by 𝓬𝓲𝓭 This is a YA romance, contemporary romance, and I read it as an audiobook. It was a very easy read. I really like this author. I've read now 2 books by her and I'm eager to read the rest that I have on my shelf. This follows Quinn, and she is the daughter of a family business that's involved in weddings, so her whole family is involved in some way. She plays I think it's the harp for the weddings, and she also helps with everything that goes on each time they have a wedding. Her parents are very invested, and her older sister went to university, got a degree, and eagerly joined the family business. And Quinn doesn't want to follow in those footsteps. She has no interest in continuing on with the wedding industry. However, she also feels a little bit like that's the only time she gets to spend with her family, and is very much so going through a lot of angst and turmoil over wanting to go to university for something other than business management, and also wanting to spend time with her family without making them feel like it's all because of weddings. So she also has some internal angst from something that happened to her family when she was a child, and no one really spoke to her about it. There's a lot of miscommunication between her and her parents that needed to be resolved at a much earlier date in their relationship, but it hasn't, and this has impacted her way of seeing love and how people interact with others that are the people of interest to them in a romantic way. And she has been going to these weddings her whole life, and from a young age been involved in them, and her family works alongside a catering business that's also family owned, and she has a crush on their son Tarek. And over the summer that this book is set in, she spends her time navigating feelings with him and trying to, how do I put it, not get lost in the feelings because she doesn't believe in love, but also being proven wrong multiple times about what love really is. I found this really interesting. Obviously Quinn wasn't my favourite character by this author. She was very grating and self-centric, but I do feel like that's quite a common theme for YA protagonists. They definitely have to go through some growth before they can realise that some of their actions are hurting others, or very focused on their own pain and not the ones around them and what they're feeling too. I also really liked Tarek. He is the main male character that Quinn has a crush on and subsequently gets into a relationship with, and I think he's great for her. I do believe the contrast between her being prickly and against love and him being an absolute hopeless romantic was a bit cliche, and some of his reactions to making Quinn feel for him were weird, but I do enjoy the progression of their story and his involvement in making her think differently or challenging her. I really enjoyed the progression of their relationship, so I gave this one 4 stars. It was just an enjoyable listen, and I felt connected at points with the storyline, and then also, like I said, I did find Quinn a little bit exasperating at times because of that teenage angst. But other than that, I think this is a great read, and a lot of people will enjoy it. The next book I read was The Stolen Throne by Abigail Owen. This is book 2 in the Dominion series, and I received it as an e-arc. I gave this one 3 stars. I'm really disappointed with how this went. I read the first book in this series last year, what is it called? The Liar's Crown, and I really enjoyed it. I love the concept. So this is about Mirren. She is a hidden princess, and she has had to step into the role of her twin sister because she now has to act as queen in her stead, and the main male character is essentially a shedded off piece of the villain, so he's made up of shadows. It's really interesting. I really liked the concept. Unfortunately, what let this story down was really poor actions and a really unnecessarily prolonged love triangle. Love triangles are not my thing. I thought this was going to be addressed pretty easily in the start of the book, but it continued through right towards the end. I did not enjoy that at all. I thought it was really silly, considering it was obvious that 𝓤𝓮 had feelings for 𝓬𝓮 and the first book, so I don't know why it was even used in this. The overall angst that was just put into this book was just not necessary. When the storyline wasn't being suffocated by these convenience tropes, I enjoyed it. I still think this world has a lot of potential to be something great. I just found that the progression of going through the storyline got very tedious, and I lost complete interest in it at some points just because I was tired of watching 𝓤𝓮 make really silly mistakes that didn't really progress the storyline or the continuous woe is me actions. I did really enjoy that the story starts out with 𝓬𝓮's point of view, and I would have liked it more if it had been dual point of view throughout, because I feel like the moody boy sort of vibe that you get from 𝓬𝓮 the whole way through just got really tiring as well. It's a shame because I had high hopes for this book, and it didn't really meet my expectations. The next book was a book club read, and it was The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. It is book number 2 in the 𝓤𝓮 series, but you can read it as a standalone, which I did. I ironically have 𝓤𝓮 on my shelf as a physical copy, but I didn't know that this was part of the same series, and a lot of us went in without reading book 1. I was really let down by this one. I gave it 2.5 stars. I'm going to preface this with, I really enjoy Lynn Painter's YA writing. I was so blown away by The Do-Over, loved that, gave it 5 stars last year. So for the fact that both Accidentally Amy and now this one have been really like quirky and not really fun to read, yeah, it's really sad because I thought that her adult romances would be just as great as YA, but it's evident that that's where her strengths lie as an author, because both books had similar issues for them. So this follows Hallie and Jack, and they meet by chance one morning and then end up at a wedding together the same night. She's working the bar and he's part of the wedding, what do they call it? He's the brother of the bride, so he is there with his current girlfriend and ends up breaking up with her and having a one-night stand with Hallie. From there they decide that they will be friends because they ironically come across each other a week later on a dating app, and then they come up with the bet that whoever can get a date that's genuine by a certain time gets either a trip to Paris, which was for her, or some baseball, that like a ball from a game, a big baseball game that is signed by all the members as the prize. And so they go through really quirky dates and end up meeting at a taco restaurant afterwards to sort of chat and commiserate the fact that they haven't found the one yet. It's very obvious from the start that they're going to end up together, and whilst I wanted to see that happen, I did not enjoy the story at all. Unfortunately, I found it really immature, which is quite sad because these are two grown adults and they couldn't talk to each other, that like things like standing next to each other and they're texting each other, like just talk as normal people. Perhaps I'm being a little bit critical, but I did find it a little bit frustrating at times, and whilst I did enjoy the fake dating aspects, I did feel like it came a little too late into the storyline and everything was quite rushed. The pacing is really off in this one, unfortunately, as well, and I suppose if you're just looking for a fun, easy read, this is great. You can get through it really quick. It is easy to read. I just didn't connect with the characters at all. I just found them really immature, and I got quite sick of it. And I wasn't the only one who found issues with this read. A lot of us in the book club gave similar ratings. Around 3 stars was the overall average. Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant to pick up another adult romance by this author, but I won't be hesitant to read her YA from here on out. Book 9 of the month that I read was the Hookup Plan by 𝓤𝓲𝓭𝓮. This is book 3 in the Boyfriend Project, and I'm really disappointed that here in New Zealand I can't get book 1 and 2 because I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars in the end because the ending was really weak and left a lot of questions unanswered. But other than that, this was really fun. So this follows 2 professionals, 𝓬𝓲𝓭 and, oh gosh, what is her name? Let me quickly look it up. So her name is London, and they meet again at a school reunion 15 years after finishing high school. She's a doctor, he is a millionaire. What is his job? Like, he works with hospitals now to audit them. And see where they can make more money, or if they need to sell or something like that. So his job is in auditing, and for their high school career they were rivals. This is mostly done by London rather than Drew, because he'd always had a crush on her, but for London, she's seen him as her worst enemy, and meeting up with him is not something that she was expecting. Equally though, London's under a lot of stress at work as a pediatrician, and dealing with the fact that the hospital that she works for is looking at privatizing and no longer being a public hospital, and she's trying to fight that. So she's under a lot of stress, and her friends mention that maybe she should find someone to have you know, some fun with, and then she'll feel a little bit less stressed perhaps. And ironically, she ends up going to bed with Drew, and from there out they have an agreement where they will hook up all the time. Unfortunately for London, who wanted to keep this separate from her work, he ends up working for the hospital and trying to save the hospital from going under, and they end up spending a lot more time together, and a progression of their relationship happens. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. It was hilarious at times. There are a lot of comments saying that it's got too much fade to black in the scenes when it's about hooking up, and the first one is fade to black, and I don't think many people have given it a chance afterwards because there are quite a few steamy scenes, and I found it just the right balance. I really enjoyed this. I think the characters were great. Like I said, I really wish I could get my hands on book 1 and 2 because I would like to complete the whole series. Only my library had book 3. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I would definitely read from this author again. It was fun, and it was just exactly what I needed to listen to while I was getting some work done, laughing away and enjoying the progression between the 2 characters. So finally I get to bring in this beauty, and this is The League of Gentlewomen Witches by India Holton. It is book 2 in the Dangerous Damsels series, and it follows in the same world as the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, which I absolutely loved last year. I gave it 5 stars, and I also gave this one 5 stars. I really enjoyed this story. This follows Charlotte, and she is a witch, and she connects with Alex O'Reilly, who is a pirate who we meet in the first book, and he's Irish, and so she already has some preconceived notions about his personality when she meets him, and is determined to not like him. And witches and pirates in this world are sworn enemies. They have a long generational feud that's going on that no one probably remembers why it happened, but it's there anyway, and this is just as delightful as the first book. I enjoyed that we got to see snippets from other characters, so we got some from Ned and Cecilia, the main characters from the first book, and from other side characters in this world, much as we did with the first book. It wasn't just solely the 2 main characters' point of view. In this story, they have to try and race to get an amulet and both pirates and witches want it, and Charlotte is believed to be the new heir of the witches' coven, and so she wants to, or Wiccan League I should say, and she wants to obviously get the amulet first, and stows away in Alex's house, which in this world are actual flying houses, and they have an instant attraction level happening, and it's just great. It's got all the levels of romance and wittiness and banter galore. I did find it a little bit nonsensical at times, which this world is meant to be, but I found it a little bit more nonsensical than the first series, but that was so minor that it didn't affect my rating for it. I enjoyed Charlotte and Alex as a couple. I really enjoyed Alex. I found Charlotte a little bit annoying at times, but it again wasn't really something that bothered me enough to take a star rating away. I just found myself enjoying Ned and Cecilia so much in book 1 that I probably didn't expect anything that would stop them from being my favorites. I actually really enjoyed a side character that's going to be the main male character in book 3, and I have high feelings that I'm going to enjoy that book the most. But this one was just as funny and as whimsical and delightful as the first, and I'm really happy that I came across this series, and I will definitely be picking up any book that India brings out, because she's just the type of author that I love in a fantasy, a cozy fantasy sort of world, and the romance is just spectacular. In fact, this one was a lot more romantic than the first one. There was a lot more physical intimacy in this one than there was in book 1, so I'll be interested to see how that plays out and balances in book 3, if it will be more like Ned and Cecilia or a bit more like this, who knows. But I'm eager for book 3. I have been checking for it to be out every single day here in New Zealand, because it's already out everywhere else. We of course are always behind and delayed with getting books in, so as soon as it's here I will have it. We're reading it as a group again next month. So the next book I finished was In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. It is book 2 in the Love Light series, and this follows Evie and Beckett. Beckett works on the farm, Love Light Farms, and Evie was the social influencer from book 1. I mentioned a little bit about them in my review in the first half of this month, because I read Love Light Farms then, and this one was much better. I still really enjoyed Love Light Farms. I gave that 4 stars. I gave this one 4.5. I did feel like the last act of angst was a little overdone and unnecessary, but other than that I really enjoyed this. So this follows Beckett and Evie, and they had a one-night stand before she came to Love Light in book 1, and she left him without any way to contact him, or like, it was a typical one-night stand, no inclination of ever crossing paths again that way. And they had such a great time and connection that when they cross paths again, they're shocked and quite awkward, because they didn't expect to again, and rush of feelings and everything like that. They have to stop thinking about each other. So you can imagine that this is going to be a story where they have that second chance of having a relationship and trying to balance the fact that he is very much going to stay in the small town of Inglewood, I think it's called, and she is supposed to be traveling to her next ventures for social media, but she's on a break and finds that the slow pace of Inglewood is more suitable to her, and falls in love with not only Beckett but the whole place. I think this was really well done. I enjoyed it. I liked the fact that the romance took some time to build up. You got to really connect with both characters as people, and the tension was really great, and it paid off in the end. The romance was really well done. In fact, I was actually listening to this as an audiobook in my horse paddock, and I was incredibly grateful that I was alone because I didn't have my headphones. It was quite spicy at one point, and I really enjoyed the progression of the intimacy and the emotional connection between these two. And I like that this whole world is just some cozy, tight-knit community, and they're all out for each other, and whilst there's nosiness and everything like that, it's still really well done. So I'm eager to pick up book 3 in this series, and I know book 4 is coming, I think, next year, so very much so invested in this series now and can't wait to see what rating I give the next one. And the final book that I finished this month, book 12, was Sing Me to Sleep by Gabby Burton. This is book 1 in the same name titled series, and this was an e-arc that I got. I enjoyed this enough. I gave it 3.5 stars. So this follows 𝓤𝓱, I hope I'm saying that right, and she is a siren in a kingdom where only fae, witches and humans exist. All other creatures have been perceived to be killed off, and so she is the only one of her kind, and she is hiding herself, pretending that she is fae, using witch magic, and the fae rule this world. I really enjoyed the whole concept of this. 𝓤𝓱 is morally grey, and because of having to deal with her need to call on people with her siren song and kill, she often finds herself feeling like she's a monster. She doesn't have a lot of regret for her kills, which is fantastic for the morally grey aspect of the story, but I did find her at times to be very reckless. You have to be reminded when you're reading this that this is a YA fantasy following a 17-year-old who's going to make really big, dramatic and reckless she's going to have big actions like that, and I had to keep reminding myself that the maturity that I was looking for in her choice making wouldn't perhaps be there, especially since she's been kind of doing this all on her own, trying to figure out how to deal with her powers and stuff. What I really enjoyed about this world is that the author wrote an entire cast without a single white character in it. I really enjoyed the fact that you could have a fantasy that's got complex layers to the kingdom, the magical system, which is like elemental, and also such an interesting cast, variety of cast and actions and plots and twists, and not have a single layer of whiteness to it, and it still be really engaging, because this is something that I feel is lacking in mainstream fantasy. So I was really excited when this world was set up. I did find that my biggest issue with this was the convenience writing. There were a lot of things that happened that were just too convenient and didn't cover the consequences that would have no doubt came with those actions from both the female main character and the male main character. I also, like I said, found 𝓤𝓱 quite exasperating. Prince Hayes was really lovely. He's the main male character, and I liked that he was like a golden retriever, sort of himbo character, but equally had every placement to go and be more villainous than he was, but stayed quite strong and true to who he was from the beginning. And I enjoyed the layer of the fact that this story follows 𝓤𝓱 moving into the palace because she wins a tournament and has to work as a guard for Prince Hayes, and his best friend is killed, and she is tasked with finding the killer, and ironically that killer is her. This is all in the synopsis, so I'm not giving anything away, but I found the layers of her trying to navigate being the killer and hiding herself, and also trying to figure out why she was sent to kill these people, quite interesting. There's a lot to this world that could have been fantastically well done, but I just found the pacing, the convenience writing, and just the main female character, her actions to be just a little exasperating at times, and a lot of info dumping that stopped it from being anything more than a 3.5 star read. So thank you so much for spending some time with me while I've wrapped up this month of April for my reading. Have you read any of these books this month or this year? I'd love to know. How many books did you manage to finish over April? Let me know again in the comments, and I hope that you're having a great day or night wherever you are. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with the wrap up in this book for the month of April sometime very soon. Bye everyone!